I'm a Chiron. People call me Little.
Well, so you gonna raise my son now?
You gonna raise him?
At some point, you gotta decide for yourself who you gonna be. Can't let nobody make that decision for you.
Who is you, Chiron? I'm me. Yeah. I ain't trying to be nothing else.
Moonlight, rated R, this Friday.
Someone is asking where's the Facebook link.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Xavier Laporte, Director of Operations for Pride Support Services.
And welcome. I'm Ray Castillo, Founder, CEO of Pride Support Services. We welcome you to our session today.
And today is a great day. We have Mr. Wesley Thompson. We have Kelli Baron and Mr. Marvin Boone, who are joining us for this. Good. How are you, Marvin?
Doing well, doing well.
Thank you for joining us. Dawn Pugh was supposed to be with us. Unfortunately, she had a family situation and she couldn't make it. So, Dawn, we love you. Thank you so much.
You.
We hope that everything is okay. Please let us know. So today's topic is based on, well, not based, I should say, because it wasn't really. Our topic today is homophobia, transphobia, and biphobia. We had chosen Moonlight. It was a movie that was recommended to us. I personally don't think it depicted homophobia, so that was kind of upsetting to me. I wish it would have depicted it a little bit better, but it is what it is.
But it was, nevertheless, it was a really good movie. I think it really talked about, the hard situations. I thought it was more of a bullying situation. I thought he really did a great job at depicting what kids actually go through at school and different places. Yeah. So I think it did a good job at portraying that. So, that part I was okay. I was not okay with the whole ending part of it. We don't know what happened afterwards, but nevertheless, it was good.
Anyways, I digress. So the film, for those of you who have not watched it, the film basically it represents the life of an African American young man in three different stages of his life, and him coming sort of to grasp with his sexuality. He does get bullied in school. People assume that he's gay, but again, it wasn't really. I don't think it was the right movie for this topic.
So we want to go ahead and introduce our guests today and give them an opportunity to introduce themselves and tell us who they are. I know that most of the community knows them, but we welcome them. Why don't we start with you, Wes?
Hey, I'm Wes Thompson. I am the medical director of Amity Medical Group here in town. We're a clinic that has two locations: East WT Harris Boulevard and Park Road. We serve a primary care population. My focus is the LGBTQ population and my HIV population, and a large percentage of that also includes PrEP for the prevention of HIV. I'm particularly interested in today's topic because I've been providing trans care now for almost 30 years and HIV care for 35 years. And of course, LGBT care, well, minus the T, was 35 years. My first I'll talk about it later, but my first trans woman really educated me. It was a trial by fire, shall we say, getting to learn that, and that was pre-internet too.
Great.
Kelli?
I'm Kelli Baron. I'm a local LGBTQ advocate and activist. I do charity work. I'm the president of Queer City Charities. We offer safe, sober social functions for queer people. I'm also a demi-pansexual, non-binary trans femme.
Awesome. Mr. Marvin.
I am Marvin Boone. I am here in Charlotte. I am a part of CPSA, which is Carolina Piedmont Softball Association, which is a LGBT gay softball nationally. And the larger group is NAGA. And I also work for Donnelly Financial, and I am an accountant.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, welcome, guys. Again, thank you so much for being with us. It's always our pleasure to have you guys with us. So, what do you guys think about the topic we have for today? Did any of you get a chance to see the movie?
I've seen Moonlight.
Yes, I did see it too.
Okay, so let's start now from Marvin. Marvin, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts at first when I first heard the movie Moonlight coming out, it was supposed to be this big LGBT movie. But when I got more into it, I didn't see it as being so much LGBT. I seen that they had it as a moment where they're actually kissed on the beach, and then later on in the movie they had another moment. But it was more about him being bullied and him being becoming a stronger person. Yeah. And he had to leave Florida to go to Atlanta to become a stronger person. And even though he was selling drugs and everything like that, it made him more aware of actually who he was as a person.
Definitely. Kelli.
I think one of the things we can take from the movie in terms of the LGBTQ relation is that the culture in which Chiron grew up made it almost impossible for him to even consider coming out. It wasn't a matter of, okay, I accept who I am and now I have to decide whether or not to come out. It was, he didn't even accept who he was because of the culture in which he was brought up. And we talk about a lot within the community, especially the support side, that, I can understand what it's like to be queer, but I can't understand what it's like to be Black and queer. And, I can't understand what it's like to be Latin and gay. Because the cultures in which you are those things have a huge impact that I can hear about and I can empathize with, but I will never understand from that point of view. And so I think that we can at least talk about how this movie depicted how that culture impacted the way Chiron could go about accepting who he was and start that journey of self-acceptance and deciding what to do about it.
See, I don't think he even understood that if he was even gay or even LGBT at all. I think
I can see that.
I think he was confused in the moment and he didn't know exactly what happened. So as he got older, I think he kind of reflected on it. It was like, maybe I may be LGBT, maybe I may not be. Maybe it's just something that happened. And most people have that moment in life. Like they don't know if they are or they aren't. So they explore it. And I don't think he ever took the time to ever explore it. I think he only did it one time and that was it. And then he did it again later on in the movie.
Wes.
Well, they both really said a lot of what I was thinking. When I watched it, I didn't so much see a movie about sexuality or even discovering sexuality as much as I saw self-actualization and coming to terms with who I am, internal validation versus external validation. It's almost as if sexuality was just sprinkled at the beginning and the end to put a little flavor there. I don't know if that's probably not the right word, but I did like the movie. I think it did show us, a small glimpse of what it's like to be Black, what it's like to be in a vulnerable population, what it's like to not have any role models to discuss who and what you might be. And it's even hard for me to say that because, I'm sitting here with white privilege. So it's, it makes me uncomfortable to even talk about, things like this.
Yeah. So my perspective on it was, I kind of had split brain. I think at some points in the movies they kind of touched on Chiron's sexuality and kind of he never openly, I think, admitted to himself or to anyone else how he felt. So that kind of left it in the air and left it to the assumption of who watches the movie. So I can't assume that he was gay.
Well, I think there was a lot of, you have to take in consideration, there was a couple of dynamics that were happening back in the day, right? The movie itself, it's not today. It was, it took, whenever he was being raised or growing up, it was back in the days. Miami as a neighborhood, right, where the culture itself is so
Right.
diverse in many ways, but very close-minded back in the days, not like it is today. Miami is not like what it is today. So there was a lot of dynamics, and also, you know, what you guys are saying, being a Black person and just like a Latino person, being raised in that environment where it is not accepted. I feel as though that there was some questioning happening within himself when he was growing up. There was something there. However, that didn't really take any action or any effect until he was a teenager, and that only happened once. But then we also see the actual facts of what his life was about.
Yeah.
His mother and all of the other dynamics that contributed to him wanting to be someone that he was not.
And that was part of what I was going to say. You know, then my therapist kicks in, and it's like, well, this is a boy who grew up in a very invalidating and unloving environment, and then to have one person pay attention to him and actually present something, even if it was, which at that moment in the beach, it was a physical component, but it was still love, it was still affection, it was still something. So that kind of makes it a point to kind of validate, okay, what is happening here? It's like I'm questioning myself. You know, here I am. I'm supposed to be this manly man, but without
a fatherly figure.
Exactly. But then again, I have this guy who gave me something no one else has given me.
Correct.
Which was love and attention. So
very interesting.
So that kind of puts the segue into today's topic, which is homophobia, transphobia, and biphobia. I have a personal kind of disclosure. I personally, Xavier Laporte
This
Sanchez,
is the place to do that.
I have serious issues with the word phobia because I don't think when we talk about the reality or what they're trying to fit into what homophobia, transphobia, and biphobia is, according to the research and how it's presented, I don't think we can fit the word phobia. As a therapist, I believe that when we use phobia, you know, the meaning of the word itself is unrealistic, excessive, and persistent fear of an object, a person, an animal, or activity, or a situation. But I don't think when we talk about the hate crimes that are happening and the way our community is treated by some sectors of the community, I refuse to call that a phobia. I think that's prejudice, and that's a whole other ballpark for me. But that's my opinion. Let's see what our panelists have to say.
You know, I'll speak to that, Xavier. I went through a process some years ago in which I was a little more militant about certain things, and I really said, you know, you're not afraid of me. Homophobia is not right. You're not afraid of me. You hate me. And this is about hate. And then I realized that we humans, we tend to fear what we don't understand, and we tend to hate what is different from us. So if you are different from me and I don't understand you, I had an epiphany to myself that both fear and hate can be part of phobia. And so I lightened up because I was in the same place you were 5-10 years ago. So whether it's homophobia, transphobia, or biphobia, I now understand that. And of course, biphobia, I don't think that that's a big issue for our straight allies or brothers and sisters as much as it is for the lesbian and gay population, because my generation just feels like bisexual means get off the pot, or, you know, either pee or get off the pot, because, you know, you're just riding the fence. You really are afraid to say you're a lesbian, or you're afraid to say you're gay. And of course, that's really not the case. There really is this continuum of sexual orientation and gender identities we now understand. I mean, really, nothing's black and white. Nothing's binary in this world. It's crazy.
Thank you, Wesley. Good point, Kelly.
Yeah, I thought Wesley and I were about to fight. Yeah, I think that touches on what I was going to say, that yes, it's hate, but it's hate that's rooted in fear, because it's fear of the unknown. It's fear of something different. It's fear of any number of things. So yeah, I see your point, Xavier, but like Wesley said, I think that they're deeply connected.
I see it more as being like as a racist thing than a phobia. It's more like they're more fearful of, they want to put you in a box. So each person has to be put in a box. So if you're homophobia, okay, you're scared of like gays or whatever. And they put you in that box. So they want to make sure they label you so they know that when they see you, oh, he's homophobic or he's transphobic or he's biphobic. They just want to put you in a box. And once you remove people from the box and just let people be whoever they want to be, you will erase the thing of being phobia towards a certain person or like whoever.
Yeah.
So that's like my pretty much thing. It's like you can't, you don't need to put people in a box. You need to let people be who they want to be and just accept it. And if you become more accepted about it, you won't have the fear of being like homophobic or transphobic or biphobia.
And that's kind of where I stand is I'm not saying that the phobia is not there. What I have an issue with is when you disguise prejudice with the phobia. When you call when we call it a phobia, and then we turn around and then we're there's really no fear. There's just prejudice and actual hatred. So it's kind of like, I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence about it.
Well, and you know what, and I think it's a good point. It's a good point because that's how many people out there feel as well, right? Especially within our community, right? But
I think Marvin makes a good point. He used the word box, and I've done this for a long time now, certainly not in the role of therapist like you guys, but I have learned over the years that most people, the only way they can really feel confident that they're okay, that they're right, is by putting everybody else into boxes that they can label. And I really like how Marvin said that if we just didn't box in people and just let them be, we'd find that I do think probably a lot of those phobias would fall away if we could just take a minute and do that.
Yeah, definitely.
I think we've done well, we try, right, to do a good enough job in educating people. A lot of it stems from what we learned and those things that have been passed on to us and not understanding how things work. So a lot of education has been put out there to really try to make awareness and make race awareness within what it is to be in our community. But still, I think that we try to do a good job, but it's just not enough. Yes, and it is a reality.
Definitely. So let's talk a little bit about from your perspective, guys. And it's so exciting to have such a varied panel today. I want to hear from you guys from each of your perspectives as to, we already talked about where you stand as to the meaning of the word itself, but now I want to kind of hear from you guys. Where do you stand in terms of how does this impact our community?
That's a big one.
That's a very big one.
Well, you have the floor, Kelli. Then.
Oh goodness. But it's so hard for me to speak. No, anyway. I was really. Yeah, everybody who knows me knows that's not true. I was excited when I saw the title this week because I'm in a position where I deal basically with all three of these things at once, just depending on, well, maybe I get all three of these from different vectors. Before we go any further, I definitely wanted to point out that pansexual is not the trans-inclusive version of bisexual. They're two completely different things. Bisexual is not inherently transphobic. Bi doesn't mean just two. What's the other crap that gets thrown around about bisexuals? None of it's true. It's all just, it's ridiculous. Just, if you don't know, ask a bisexual person.
Kelli, that's our topic for next week.
Exactly.
My God, Kelly.
But you know what? Go ahead. I'm sorry, Kelly. If you're
but I was just gonna I deal with homophobia because I date, for the most part, female and female adjacent people. I deal with the transphobia because while I have full control over who knows that I'm trans, I'm pretty open about it. And as a pansexual person, I deal with some of the things that a lot of bisexual people deal with. And honestly, I think the biggest thing is it's just tiring. It gets you down. It just wears at you. You know, you expect to deal with that sort of thing from outside the community.
Right.
You know, like, I'm not surprised when a straight man gets angry at me for existing.
Mm-hmm. But you kind of expect that, though.
A straight cis, excuse me, let me be very specific. When a straight cis man gets angry at me for existing, that doesn't surprise me anymore. Mm-hmm. But when a cis lesbian questions who I am because of what happens to be between my legs, when, you know, when somebody doesn't even want to consider me as a romantic partner because of the fact that I would date people of different genders. Like, we have it hard enough in our community, and we make it harder on ourselves by tearing each other down. And that's what gets me about the trans and biphobia within the community is, for crying out loud, why? Like, why can't we just put aside these differences? Like, I don't get it. I don't get why we do that to each other, basically.
It's because they don't understand and they're not educated enough to understand what you're going through. That's what it basically comes down to. You know, once they understand and then are educated about it, then they will have an understanding of what you go through daily of dealing with certain type of people.
But I think that since everybody in the queer community, everybody in the LGBTQ community has to deal with that as well. And I don't understand why people can't be more empathetic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'd like to speak to that since I'm the old guy in the room here. That I think I probably came out before all of you were born, and you do not need to.
I'm a lot older than you think I am, but go on.
Same here. Right. So I came out in the 70s, and when I came out, well, it was a process from 78 to 90, my coming out process, because it was, you know, in fits and starts, and I didn't understand, and I was constantly trying to get, you know, on the right side with God, because I really thought God wanted something, and I realized that she didn't want that, and I was just misled by houses of worship. But that's a whole nother story. And I almost went down a rabbit hole there. Sorry, guys. But what really bothered me was when I was beginning to learn about the lesbian and gay community, and then I learned what bisexuals were, and then when the T was somewhere around the 70s was when transgender began to get included in the more progressive areas, and there was such an anger that no, we're about sexual orientation, gender identity should not be included. And it was interesting to hear the arguments from really educated people, Marvin, people with PhDs.
Right.
They may have been educated, but they were not understanding.
Yeah.
And I mean, this, you know, and I hate to use the word umbrella, but it is kind of an umbrella that we should all, I mean, we are a very, a population that has been challenged by the heteronormative, you know, majority. And rather than divide ourselves, as Kelly just mentioned, within our community, rather than fight against each other, we should be there embracing each other, going, I know what it is to be ostracized. I know what it is to be stigmatized. Let's just be supportive. And I'm shocked at men my age who are in my clinic who are like, well, you know, well, I just don't have any tolerance for those transgender people, or I don't have any tolerance for bisexuals. They just need to go ahead and tell people they like dick.
Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely, and you know, being an organization or starting this organization that was geared towards serving the whole entire community, not just one particular community, was one of the thoughts that we had as to be that type of organization that we're trying to bring everybody together, from the educational component to the services that we provide. Not necessarily, but we're just catered to the gay community, the lesbian, the trans, or whatnot. No, we're an all-inclusive, we're a queer community that we're going to be service. We were providing services to everyone and bringing us together. Regardless of who you are and what you define yourself as, and what your likes or dislikes are. And that was our our idea, and this is what we preach at PSSC. That's who we are.
Definitely.
But yeah, it is a true fact, and I think not to mention also that how much hurt we do to one another whenever we are in this situation. From being we talk about, and it's funny because when we talk about our original conversation of being prejudiced and racist and everything, we always want to kind of look at the heterosexual community as the ones that are actually doing it. But there is a lot of that within our queer community as well.
There's a lot within our community, and it's kind of sad. And you don't really expect you expect that once you're in this community that everyone embraces you and loves you, and it's not. Yeah, like that's not true. Like you have to move accordingly as if you were in a straight community, and you shouldn't have to feel that way when you're in the LGBTQ community at all. You should feel like everyone should be loved because we're all pretty much the same way, if you want to say it the same way. But you should not feel by yourself, even within like amongst your people, as they could say. You should always feel love within,
Michael pointed out, and as he asked the question, I was looking at. It's like we have a very kind of generational panel today. He said, "How have these changed since our community has started to become more mainstream?"
You mean, do you think he's referencing the 3 words in our title today? Homophobia,
Yes.
transphobia, and biphobia. From a medical point of view, I see that there has been some progress, but I also recently have seen that at least in the last 3 or 4 years, when there was a change within our administration, governmental administration, I have noticed that there has been less affirming, less embracing, and there's been more divisiveness because it's as if we've been given permission by our leaders that it's okay to divide and conquer rather than embrace. I do not ascribe to this America first mentality because that's childish. It's like me first, me first, me first. And I was taught that we are a community, and not just an American community, but a global community. And that includes these 3 words as well. We should be a global family that embraces each other, not this me first childlike attitude that, everybody else go to hell.
Yeah. I actually have no idea. Because even though I'm knocking on the door of 50, I still thought I was a straight man as of 5 years ago. So, I've had a lot of gay friends in my life. I've had a lot of people around me in the LGBTQ community for as far back as I can remember. But I wasn't directly affected by any of what people have been going through the 70s and the 80s and the 90s. I remember seeing things change. I remember going through the AIDS crisis and losing friends and seeing how coming out the other side of that helped some people open their minds. But, I don't have any statement about what it felt like from the inside because I wasn't on the inside until recently.
We wanted to ask Marvin one of the questions that we wanted to ask. When we talk about sports, right? And did you feel at any given time that it was necessary to actually do a gay league versus, or what does that look like? I mean,
it's funny because when I first started playing softball, it was in Stonewall here in Charlotte, and it was a gay softball league. So I was like, okay, this would be something new. I could get more in tune with the actual community. And then as we became more nationally known, and we grew out of the Stonewall and moved into a different way of doing sports, we became a part of this place called NAGA, which is basically the Gay Athletics Association for all softball throughout the United States. And I ain't really have that much prejudice until when we had our own tournament here, and we had like a straight team, and they really couldn't believe that us gay players could play this well. So they were like, so when we was pretty much like, I would say I'm like beating them, they were like, I can't believe these, you know, like these faggots are like whooping our ass. But literally, but they really don't understand that we always been gay. We just never came out and told that we were gay. We always knew how to play. We always knew that we were good enough to play. Just that we have now where we feel that we're in a community where we could be gay and have sports and enjoy ourselves just as the straight person would. And then once they realize that, and and like the funny thing about sports is that if you're good, they will accept you. If you're not good, they won't accept you. So it was more about, okay, these, you know, like these guys could play, so we can't call them the F word. We can't call them faggots or nothing like that. They're good players. And then that's when they kind of opened up their mind, like, okay, you know, he's real good. He's not coming on to me or nothing like that. He's just here to enjoy the sport and to play. And once you get past that, it makes it easier to actually intermingle with actually straight players and gay players. And like the majority of straight players, they have no idea that they're playing with a gay person. They have no clue. And it's not like we go out there and like broadcast it. I mean, don't get me wrong, some players are very flamboyant and some are not. They're just ball players. So with that being said, it's more about how you carry yourself on the field. If you're a true ball player and you want to play, they will accept you. And if you're a good ball player, they'll basically will accept you even more. So
which in reality, what happens in my brain right now is like, well, you should be accepted regardless whether you play ball well or not.
Exactly.
As a person and as who you are, but the reality, and that's what I wanted to ask, because what happens? Why is it that we're still in that mentality where I'm a gay person, then I should play a gay sports rather than joining a regular soccer team or a softball team. And going through that motion.
But I think he makes a kind of an interesting point, because I think, and Marvin, correct me if I'm wrong, but what I hear you saying is that once you guys are all like in the ball field and the game starts and that first ball is thrown, it's like gender identity, sexual orientation goes out the door, and then it's all about the game. And I think it's kind of it's interesting, right? How we can find and I guess that's kind of and I guess that's one of the things about sports that has always been the cardinal rule. It's like when we're playing, it's like it's about the sport and it's not about who's your mom or who's your dad or who you are. So I guess it's interesting. Maybe we should get everyone to play a sport in the community. Maybe we'll be more
Kelly doesn't sweat. No.
So now I really lost interest in sports when I realized baseball players were wearing a protective cup.
Yeah.
So there's always a locker room, though.
I think we talked last week about the whole reason I joined the swim team in high school. So no, it wasn't about sports.
Like, I'll throw you curveballs. So we have we have the gay softball World Series and stuff like that, and we have these tournaments. So you'll see a lot more straight players come to our tournaments than actual gay players. And we always ask him, like, why are you a straight player coming to our gay tournaments? He's like, well, you guys could actually play really, really good. And also, you're more organized than the average tournament. I was like, so our planning is a lot better, and our general community as far as like we're more friendlier. So we'll come out and say hi to you, and they enjoy that they enjoy the fact of being acknowledged. It's not like they're coming to hit on you. They just want to know that, okay, we know that you're here to have fun. This is what we're going to do. We probably go drink afterwards or whatever, go to a bar, but we're still here to have fun and play softball. And they appreciate more that of the interaction. It just long as like there is like kind of like an invisible line of what to cross and what not to cross. And also some of them, they have gay friends that they just can't bring to their regular tournaments still, so they go to their tournaments and they feel that they could support them well, like basically like support them in playing the both sport that they both love for the most part.
Definitely. So, Michael, Chris says, I have experienced more judgment and prejudice in gay community. Totally socked me once I came out. Yeah, and it happens, sometimes when and it's kind of unfortunate. I don't know. It's just unfortunate. That's all I can say. I can go on a rampage here, but I'm not. It's just unfortunate. That's all I'm going to say.
You know what that reminds me of is when I was younger and coming to grips with being gay. I would not date somebody that was the least bit feminine, and I was really uncomfortable with drag queens because I was so inexperienced, and it was outside my comfort zone. And of course, that was because I didn't know enough about me. Once I got that internal validation and I realized that, I can be whoever I want to be and they can be who they want to be. And that I don't have to be like that. I just need to say that's okay for them. I'm okay. They're okay. And I was there too. I have to just own that I don't, and again, back to what Kelli was saying, my uncomfortableness, my fear made me prejudiced towards, the less masculine aspects of our community. And of course now, I'll embrace my feminine side.
Yeah.
So, Wes, this question is specifically to you. Obviously, Marvin and Kelli, you can chime in, but how do specifically these three terms, homophobia, transphobia, and biphobia, what do you feel is their impact on the individual in terms of access to healthcare?
Oh, there's a lot of research that goes into the number of trans men and women that are afraid to access healthcare because they've already had a negative experience with a healthcare provider. The numbers are shocking, and the numbers who delay because they just same thing. I just can't say that enough. That's probably the biggest. Now, the number of cis women who will tell me they're bisexual happens a lot more often than the number of cis men who will tell me they're bisexual. Now, being an open gay man, and I've been out for so long, I think that people come to me knowing that, okay, I can just say anything to Wes and it's probably going to be okay. And I think that's an outlier for me. So I do hear a lot more honest, and people come to me a little more quickly. But out in the regular community where who I am is not what you're going to meet normally, I think that there's a lot of angst, a lot of fear. The amount of substance use disorder and the amount of mental health diagnoses in our community is rampant. And we don't know which comes first, and it doesn't really matter. We just have to understand that these are ongoing and most of the time not curable diagnoses that our patients carry and our community carries. And I think that compounds being able to talk about these three.
That's an excellent point. And I think I talked about it in last week when we were having our discussion on was it transgender? No, last week.
Yeah.
My research was based on transphobia, and it's alarming. And from a perspective of therapists, that's another. There's the mental health side and the medical side, which is at the same rate. Our community, the queer community, is so has been negatively impacted by therapists out there as well. Not only medical providers, but therapists out there that are not culturally sensitive to our culture, don't understand it, and they just think that I can go ahead and get on out there and talk to a queer person just like a heterosexual person, and diagnose them the same way and treat them the same way when it's really not. That's why PSS.
One of the things that concerns me about our medical community, and I'll extend that to the mental health community as well, is the amount of suicide attempts in trans youth and let's just go ahead and say the LGBT, but it's much higher in the trans population. And the number of medical and mental health providers that have probably been the nidus for that attempt, someday I hope that I can say that we've erased that or we've diminished that before I retire.
Yeah.
Well, and I can also point out, as a trans person looking for healthcare, I can't just stop with, is this provider, trans friendly?
Yeah.
Is the staff, is the system in the office set up to deal with, the complexities of gender diversity? Are the other patients in the waiting room going to be okay with a trans person sitting there waiting for an appointment? Because we just moved down to Gastonia from Mooresville. So not exactly the most culturally sensitive areas of town. And when I started seeing a general practitioner in Mooresville who had been the general practitioner for my entire family for a long time. And before I even made an appointment, I had my mother ask him, hey, do you have an issue treating a trans person? He said, no, of course not. But the staff, when they found out that I was trans, some of them were less than nice. And I guarantee that most of those patients in a waiting room in Mooresville would not have been okay with me being there had they known I was trans. Mm-hmm. And there's layers to access more than just the actual care itself. There's the entire infrastructure. I think last week we touched on, I'd gone out to the health department and
I was going to tell you to comment on that.
The entire so for those who weren't with us last week, a while back I was starting a new relationship, so I went down to get tested because that's what you do, and I spent a great deal of time with the nurse because her system was not set up to accept my answers to her questions. Like, when was the last time you slept with a man? Well, what do you mean by that? Do you mean when was the last time I slept with someone with outdoor plumbing? Well, that was last night. Or when was the last time I slept with someone who sleeps with men? Well, my girlfriend is bisexual and, sees other people. Like, the complexities of who we are that's too much for most of these systems to deal with. And this particular nurse was really upset by the end of our visit because she couldn't do her job. She couldn't record my responses to her, my truthful responses to her questions. Mm-hmm. And Wesley's laughing, but it is comical because like every single thing she said, I had to say, well, what do you mean by that? Mm-hmm. Because I knew what she was asking, but
it wasn't a simple multiple choice question.
Right. It exactly. Like the question and the answer was not as simple as she was assuming it to be, and far more complex than the system allowed her to record.
Yeah. And if we push it even a little bit further, it's kind of the like Kelly says, healthcare, insurance companies, providers, people. How do people feel in that visit this office with people who are not like them? But then we take it to the other side and we talk about employment and the fact that employers don't feel comfortable, hiring openly queer people. And they don't understand it, and they feel as though it's not a good look for them. They feel it's not.
They're not competent. They're not trained well. There's so many dynamics to that.
Definitely.
Well, Marvin, and when you're hiring for a public facing position, a lot of these employers are overly concerned about how their clientele is going to feel about interacting with a gender diverse person or someone who does not present in a traditional manner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
definitely. Yep. So, and this is kind of the impact of homophobia, transphobia, and biphobia, which I jokingly called queerphobia, right, to encompass the whole umbrella. The stress, the chronic stress that comes along with not feeling accepted, not feeling that you're part of the bigger picture of, being bullied, just like what happened to Little in the movie. It's kind of, these situations cause major stress and obviously mental health it's very impacted, highly impacted in our community. The lack of support from family, the lack of support from people who are supposed to love you unconditionally, people who are supposed to look after you regardless of who you are. You know, I mean, it's a very, and when we were doing this topic, Ray and I kind of take turns doing like the outline of our discussion. So this was my turn, and I sent Ray the email, and I was like, look, this is a very dense topic. There is a lot that we can kind of go in and we can bash a lot of people, but you know, it's not the purpose. The purpose is to educate, and the purpose is to kind of share what is it from our perspective. You know, this homophobia, transphobia, biphobia are three words that should not exist. Should not exist within our community. Should not exist outside of our community. Because I think each individual, and I think I mentioned this in many of our other lives, each individual has the right to live however they want to live. And the reason we always get so excited about bringing you guys into the conversation is not only obviously to get your input and your opinion and your feedback from the perspective of what part of this queer umbrella you're in, but I guess in a way to reflect to all those people who are out there, who, whether they're gay or queer or they're straight or wherever they're at, that we are normal people. We are professionals. We are hardworking individuals that bleed if they cut us, just like any other human being, you know, and we cry and we have emotions and we love and we, you know, we do everything a normal human being does. So,
can I say something about that real quick? You know, one of the things that I always teach my clients in the room in therapy is, well, you know, what is it that you have control of, right? What you have control of is what you can change. What you don't have control of, it's going to be difficult if you try. But I think it can start with our community, right? It can start with the queer community, how we see each other and how much we are willing to change our mindsets and how we view each person, each subcategory, however you want to define it. But you know, it's as far as us penetrating the straight community, the heterosexual community out there, and asking them to change. With that, if we continue in this discriminating against each other, it's not gonna make things better. So I call it upon our community, our queer community, that it is time for us to stop, you know, being having these phobias against one another. It's time to really get educated and being accepting of one another and loving one another. It's hard enough what we have to deal with out there, especially these days are so intense for us in so many different ways. So I want to call on our community, to our queer community today and say, you know, we need to really get better at this.
Ray, you make a good point. I have a life coach that I visit with once a month, and her most recent comment to me, I was talking about change, just like this, and what my role was in this community, or in my role in my family, and my role in relationship, etc. And she was very blunt with me. She said, you know, Wes, control is just an illusion, and your ability to change anyone else is also an illusion. Right. The only thing you can do is set an example by being who you are, true to yourself, and they will eventually see that. Be careful wasting your energy, because you'll end up getting into this role of expectations that you're going to just burn out trying to change other people.
Correct. Definitely. Love it. Love it.
He just snapped. Did he just snap?
I just want to say we have 5 minutes, and I just wanted to invite you guys to say anything that's in your hearts and your thoughts about the topic, or anything specifically. If you want to put a message out there, I wanted to say that the change starts with me, right? How I do it and how I see things and what I'm going to do next. So I invite you guys to do the same. Put a message out there if you like. Let's start with
Marvin.
Yep, Marvin.
My biggest thing is I just want everyone to tear down these walls and stop labeling people and just accept and love each other. And once you do that, everything else becomes simple. Because once you're able to love within your community, then you're able to branch out to change other communities that they put you in a box in. Like, we shouldn't have boxes for people that are basically, like, we're all humans, so we should not be put in a certain category. We should just be who we are and accept and love people around us, and no matter what they are, and just accept the pretty much the diversity of what people are, and just love each other. That's pretty much it.
Thank you, Marvin.
Kelli.
When I was running Transcend, or even before running, just with Transcend, I coined the phrase aggressively accepting. And that was sort of our guiding principle, that it wasn't enough for us to accept people. We needed to be proactive about ensuring their acceptance with others, especially when we're dealing with portions of the community that deal with a little more difficulty. You know, when we're dealing with gender diverse people who, you know, even within the trans community might not necessarily be fully accepted. That's inexcusable. And it's not okay. It's not enough to just open our doors for those people. We also have to send the message that these people are part of us and valid the way they are. So to me, there's almost, and, you know, not every person needs to be an activist, but somebody does. So some of us need to be standing up and yelling for the individuals who can't yell for themselves.
Yes.
Just as somebody had to stand up, just as Marsha and Sylvia had to throw bricks to get things started, somebody's got to get things started by not necessarily throwing bricks, but at least speaking up within our community and speaking for the people who have no voice.
Thank you,
Kelli.
Yes.
Wes.
I would just encourage, and this is kind of echoing off of what Marvin and Kelli just said, I would encourage our community to understand that when you see or hear or experience something that is against our community and you say or do nothing, you are affirming that negative action towards us. And you need to really ask yourself, now, if you fear for your life, I understand that, but remember, saying nothing and doing nothing can be just as harmful as what the insulting individual is doing.
Silence is complicity.
That's right. That's right. Well, guys, again, we want to thank you so much for taking your time being with us and talking about this topic, which is very dear to us. We continue to speak a word. We continue to get out there through these live sessions and putting out our voices out there and letting everybody know who we are and what we're about and what we want to do. And again, we want to take this opportunity to let every queer person out there that is listening or seeing us, we love you, we care for you, and we want to know about you. If you ever need us, please reach out to us. That's what PSSC is all about. You can reach us at info@brightsupportservices.org, or you can call us at the number, I don't even know it yet, but it's in our Facebook page, or simply just message us and send us a message. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you for everybody that has been very responsive to PSSC. Thank you so much. Thank you, Wes.
Thank you,
Kelli, Marvin. Thank you so much. We love you guys.
As usual, stay 2 minutes after the live. People, as I always say, love, love, love. We love you guys. We're nothing without you. Thank you so much for all your support, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week.
See you next week.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.